I'll accept it.
We are letting everybody in right now, okay?
Oh, wow. Yes, they're joining rapidly. Oh, I see people looking in at their parties. There's Rye. I don't know what city, what town they're in. I'll mute. Happy Tuesday, everyone. We're going to get started in a minute. We're letting all the folks across the Eastern Seaboard in right now. Hi, everybody out there. Happy International Women's Day. Oh my God, we're so excited to see all of you on Zoom and all at the watch parties around the East Coast. So I am Francie Molina. I am the team leader of the 9-person Francie Molina team in Westchester County, New York. We're just north of New York City. I'm also the regional leader of Women of Compass for Connecticut, Westchester, and Northern New Jersey. So I have the honor of presenting with you today. So for many of you who joined Compass during COVID, you're probably wondering, what is Women of Compass? Women of Compass is I think it's the largest affinity group at Compass. There are many, and they're amazing. It was founded in March 2016 by 3 women from different departments who had a goal of setting up an organization that would provide content such as this. It's female run, and it's all volunteer and volunteer funded. Don't forget those points, because we're going to get back to those. So we're led by women, but we're inclusive of everybody, all agents, employee leaders. We have national leaders, regional leaders, inclusive of employees, and all shapes, sizes, colors. We take you. We're happy to have you. So please follow us.
Can you hear us in Greenwich? Hello?
Our mission, events are planned in the spirit of collaboration, socialization, and education, and of course, supporting each other. So in 2022, we're aligning with Robert's goal of 1,000 in-person events and hosting in-person events as much as possible, and which makes me so happy about today. Right now, there are 13 watch parties going on from Boston to Philly, including Ardmore, Pennsylvania, Greenville, Morristown, Walnut Street office, in Westchester and Dobbs Ferry here. In Connecticut, we've got Greenwich and Westport. In New Jersey, we've got Princeton, Jersey City, Ridgewood, Short Hills, Morristown, Montclair. And we've got people on Zoom from Boston to Philadelphia and New York City. So we're just thrilled to finally get back at it, take the masks off, and let's collaborate without ego. So if you have an event, an idea for Women of Compass, you want to volunteer, there's plenty of ambassadors and regional leaders that are going to be on this call today. So reach out to us. We need all the help we can get. Employees, please, we're about you. We need you too. And we have plenty of you that are already leaders. I'm going to shift over to the agenda at hand, and today is International Women's Day, and I'm so excited that we have such a phenomenal leader to present to us. International Women's Day was started in Copenhagen in 1911, and in 1975, the United Nations recognized it. This is the 111th International Women's Day, so it's really exciting to be here all together. International Women's Day is to recognize social, economic, and political achievements of women. And I can't think of a better leader at Compass to present to us in that regard. Neda, you need no introduction. You are absolutely amazing, but just a couple words. You're a true leader, a lady boss, a new mom to Theo, which we're so excited to hear all about. And you're just a role model to many of us. And Jason Wilson, our phenomenal regional leader, and I were discussing, like, who to present. And, we just feel like we haven't had a lot of new staff and agents at Compass over the couple of years, haven't had a lot of access to you. So it's so exciting to present you to, I don't even know how many people are on this. We'll get to that. So and I just want to start with, you moved up the ranks really quickly. You were Robert's chief of staff, you were secretary of the board, you were the East Coast president, and now you're the US president. And I'm sure some part of that is due to the skills that we're going to discuss today: time management, coding your calendar, your 20-minute meetings, managing your mindset. But first, could you just tell us what the US president does?
Francie and everyone, thank you so much for putting this on. I know how busy you all have been for 24 plus months and running, and thank you for carving out this time. It's so wonderful to get to be with all of you, especially on International Women's Day, which holds a very special place in my heart. What on earth do I do? Look, I see it as my responsibility to bring Compass's mission to life from coast to coast for our employees and for our agents. That means a laser focus on doing what we do best. Our purpose at Compass is to be the best place for agents to grow their business and for employees to realize their potential. So I see that as my number one responsibility. And I think the one thing I'll say is, I love roles, and I often think about this role as one where you have to have a foot in two very different places. So you got to have a foot in the present today, what's the most important thing we have to tackle, and a foot in 5 years from now. So if you're not thinking about where the business is going in 5 years from now, you're not seeing around the corner. You have to have a foot in understanding what is the local nuance that makes Rye different from Scarsdale, different from Greenwich, because those markets are ticking in very different ways. And then you have to think about it in national scale. So what are we building that allows us to be national and scaled in a very different way than other brokerages? So I also see a really important part of my role as thinking about what are those spectrums where you actually need to exist on the two extremes in order for us to be building for the future. And I see myself as being very accountable for that.
Love that. And I knew you were going to tee me up for the one thing I wanted to address before we get into the Q&A. I remember I mentioned volunteer funded, volunteer run. None of this today could have happened without Nicole, our marketing advisor, and Dana Gold, our agent experience manager, and Jason Wilson, our regional leader, and many, many other agents, employees, agents, and staff from around the Eastern Seaboard. And I know it's International Women's Day, but I just want to go off script for 1 second and just address that culture thing. When I got here, first Westchester agent, trying to explain to folks in this region what's the difference, didn't do a very great job of it. A friend of mine joined shortly after, and she said, Tesla, horse, and buggy. I came from a 1990s brokerage where the 1990s was calling and they wanted the brokerage back, and nothing was about the agent. Here, the culture is all about the agent, but we really have to just take a second and just pat our employees on the back, thank them, hug them. In this crazy spring market that we're enduring, they pick up the pieces for us. Jason literally picked up the pieces of me and put me back together and got this event run with everybody here. And we really just need to thank our employees. And from the top down, the message is always, it's about the agent. And we wouldn't be as successful as we are without it. So thank you, lovelies. Okay, we're going to get to the Q&A. We're going to start with me here, and then we're going to throw it out to the different areas. So I'm going to start. My mantra for this year is healthy selfish. I was the yes person for a gosh darn million years. And this year I'm setting guardrails and putting some no in place and managing my personal time and my mindset. We know you're a compulsive schedule. We know you color code your calendar. We know you do 20-minute meetings and move to the next. But parenting a newborn has an erratic schedule to it. And we're wondering, have you further honed your scheduling skills as a result of Theo joining the team? And also share some of your skills because we need help. We're really struggling here.
I love that, Francie. Okay, so let me take a step back. I am so passionate about time management and organization. So let me talk, for those of you who haven't heard me talk about some of the things that Francie talked about. I run my life off of my calendar. I think a lot of you probably do as well. Are we screen sharing? Okay. So I definitely run my life off of my calendar. So what Francie alluded to, so I have different colors literally in the calendar. It looks like a bag of M&Ms for different meetings so that I can very quickly hone in on what needs to happen. So meetings are a specific color. Travel, if I need to get from one office to another, different color. My personal commitments are a separate color. Notes are a different color, and it keeps me just visually very organized. I believe that efficiency lies in how you use the bite-sized pieces of time that you have. So Francie just alluded to this. You know, it's really easy to do if somebody asks for 45 minutes of your time or 30 minutes of your time, just to say yes and take it. But if you just take 1 second to slow down and say, actually, that meeting we can cover off in 15 minutes. I can cover off that in 20 minutes. If you move from 30 minutes to 20 minutes, you can literally do 3 meetings versus 2 in an hour, right? And that's just like a tiny little tweak, but all of a sudden you're 50% more efficient with your time than you otherwise would have been. So it's these little things that are what I would say like really ruthless, but really important. I put everything in the calendar. If somebody sends me a document, Francie sent me a document related to this session, I scheduled 15 minutes to make sure that I would review it. And I literally include the link to the document and throw it into the calendar. If I know I met with someone this week who told me that in 4 weeks from now, his son is going to find out about getting admissions to his dream college. What did I do right after that meeting ended? I went 4 weeks from that day and I put in a reminder to reach out to be like, hey, how did it go? Has your son heard back from the college, right? Just put everything so that it's not taking up room in your brain. Put it in an action plan, put it into your calendar, because that your calendar can do the thinking for you. The other thing I do is I am so ruthless, and maybe the employee team has sort of seen some of this. I always ask, what is the purpose of a meeting and who is the owner of the meeting? Because if you're going in, you're meeting with 10 people, nobody actually sees themselves as the owner. That means there's gonna be no agenda. That means there's gonna be no common understanding of how do we know that we're done? Like, how do we know that we've achieved the objective or the outcome of that 60 minutes? And you're doing other people a favor by actually forcing them to do that work, or forcing yourself to do that work before going in, because otherwise you'll spend an hour with your team or a call that a buyer or a seller has requested and not actually gotten to the end outcome that you need. Similar to you, Francie, I choose when I can say no and say yes. And what else can I say on the calendar front? I mean, you all, if you look at my morning calendar, it's like in 10-minute chunks. Like I schedule 10 minutes for cardio, and it's literally like bite-sized pieces like that, or else it won't ever happen. The other thing that I do calendar related is I have a spreadsheet for all the, let's say like the top 25 people I meet with most frequently. Super basic. I live in Google spreadsheets. I have their name in one column. And then every time I think of something that I need to talk to that person about, or something comes up in a different meeting or a call, I go into the spreadsheet and I write it next to Francie's name, or I write it next to Jason's name. So then when I meet with Francie or meet with Jason, and that's a tab that's always open in my computer, I just go straight into that tab, look at the spreadsheet, look at Jason's name, look at the next column over, and I know what the 5 most important things are that I need to talk to him about, follow up. So it makes sure that I'm creating complete transparency across the team, but it also ensures that I'm holding people accountable to the things that they say that they are going to do, and I'm holding myself accountable to the things that I say I am going to do. 2 other things on this topic, Francie, because I could go on this for a full hour. On communication, okay, we all need to snatch our power back. We need to take the time back that our phones and apps are stealing from us. And so I have very intentionally turned off all but 3 different apps notifications. So the New York Times can no longer distract me, and Twitter can't distract me, and whatever random open table or whatever you have, like I have turned them all off. No red icons with the 1, 2, 3 counting up, and no notifications other than email, text, and phone. If someone really needs you or something's really important, it's gonna come through one of those channels. The other things that I've done are, and by the way, the reason that's important is because you need to ask, like, is this distraction going to move the needle for me, or is it just a distraction? And it takes 20 minutes. Go into the settings, turn off the notifications for the majority of apps that you don't need it. Oh my God, I felt so liberated after I did that. And my brain could operate without distraction. The other quick things I do on the communications front, I answer emails right away if I can, because if you go back to that same email, you read it again, you don't respond, you go back a third time, you read it, you think a little bit, maybe you draft a little bit of a response, then you step away, you go back. Now you've read that same email that could be quite long 4 or 5 times versus the one time and responding right away. So unless something is really thoughtful and requires work, get it out, get the response out right away. That doesn't mean you have to be a zero inbox person, but I try to keep the inbox under 40 emails, which I think for me is like feels pretty manageable. I will send voice notes instead of text messages because I think that they're often faster and you can convey the emotion, the importance, urgency, the sentiment, the feel, the tone much more easily. I will use the video notes from the Compass app often because I think those are also really powerful. Although I've done that sometimes to people who don't know me and they think I'm like a Chinese bot spamming them. So make sure that you send the text first before the video link. And then if I'm in a meeting that requires follow-up, I will just start drafting the follow-up instead of writing it down on a piece of paper or notebook, because I'll lose the piece of paper or the Post-it, or I have to transcribe from the notebook into a draft eventually anyway. And then on the personal front with Theo, I mean, holy moly for the moms and dads or adoptive moms and dads on the phone, it adds a whole new dimension having that child. And so I've thought meticulously about how to organize the personal components of my life. And these are like, I'm sure all of you are doing a lot of these hacks, but these were new to me when I became a parent. So I set up Amazon, subscribe and save, like set it and forget it. And if I end up with too much toothpaste every once in a while, it's fine. It's great. Good problem to have. I put everything in a spreadsheet in my personal life. You all, this is so crazy, but I literally have, I have a spreadsheet of like the weekly groceries I need to get. I have a spreadsheet of where things are in my house, like the things that I only use once a month, because I'll forget where the doodad is unless I write down like where, what cabinet, what room it is. Like, I'm not even kidding. These are next level crazy hacks, but you have to do it when you're as busy as we are. And then I ask for help. We are lucky enough to be a part of this network where there is both expertise as relates to almost like any industry and any geography. So if I'm traveling, I'm not going to go bury myself for 3 hours to look up reviews on a hotel or a park or a restaurant. Like, I'm going to go email the 4 or 5 people or go on Compass Workplace and post and seek out advice on any dimension. I think we're really lucky to be a part of this network where we can very easily tap in to help through the Women at Compass group or others in a way that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. And then the one last thing I'll say on this front is I make sure that I not set people in my life up for failure. So just because you want someone to help with something or you want to outsource something to someone, if you know that they are not going to be capable of doing it, God bless my husband, but I was just telling Francie and Dana and Jason right before this that last night I was on a work call and I heard Theo, hysterically screaming, crying. And I turned, I was like, what happened? And my husband's like, I put him in the bath and he found the bar of soap and he ate soap. And I was like, well, good God, I should just never have had you do bath time. But I think it's just really important, like set people up for success, outsource the things that they're going to be great at, not the things you want them to be great at, because otherwise, you have to do double the work. And then invest in the great people around you, right? Robert is so good at this. And I think our best team leaders are so good at this. I think Gordon is best in the world at this. It's identify the things that the people around you are great at, and plug them in, because you can't be everywhere and you're never going to be great at all of the things. So identify the places where people are going to be great, invest the time for what I would call like a lobotomy, like take the pieces of your brain, your judgment, your frameworks, how you think, invest the time up front to train them on those things, help define what success looks like, and then let them go run with it. Because all of a sudden you will have multiplied yourself out in the world.
I love all of this. And I'm going to add to the end portion. Doug Headings gave a tip to a bunch of agents. It would work for teams as well. You take a white sheet of paper, you fold it in half, and you have everybody on your team put on the left side everything they like to do and they feel good at, and everything they don't like to do. And it was amazing when I got my sheets back. Kelly doesn't like staging. Shayna does, that kind of thing. But I am the quintessential person who sets people up for failure. So I would have my husband do the bath every time and be frustrated. And I love your mindset that no, we're going to put him in the lane that he belongs in, which is not the bath. So thank you for all that. That is so helpful. And it leads into my final question. Then we're going to pass it around the East Coast. But I'm always saying to the team, and you alluded to this in the beginning of the call as well, what got us here won't get us there. Like my team has to be positioning for the next 5 years. And we also have to, now we're a big team handling tons of transactions. We've got to keep our relationships growing. 8 employees feel that way. They get promoted, they get to the next level. Well, how do I lead? I don't know how. So you've moved really fast and you certainly model that growth is happiness. So any advice, self-help books, podcasts, anything you can share with us that can help us keep it going at the next level?
I'll say a couple of things. I love that. The inner monologue that you tell yourself is so important. It's the most important conversation you have every day. And so I think what's so important is to pause when you can and ask, what am I telling myself? What's the story about me that I'm telling me? Do I talk about my strengths so I have more to give? Or am I telling myself another story? And so I say this because, look, I'm an aspirational meditator. What I mean by that is I never meditate, but I always want to. It's always my New Year's resolution, right? But I do believe in the importance of mindset. And I think that is such a big part of growth. What's the story about yourself that you tell yourself? And who are you surrounding yourself with, whether it be an affinity group like Women of Compass, whether it be a team leader in your office who you really admire, how they run their business, or a friend out in the world. Who are you surrounding yourself with that's going to give you a reinforcement of the narrative that you need so that you can wake up every day and have more to give? That's what this business is all about. It's like, how do you wake up every day and self-motivate from within? So I think that that's really, really important, because what it does, and Francie, you've heard me say this so many times, like my mantra is always, the strongest steel is well-earned self-belief. The strongest steel in your life is well-earned self-belief. And so who are the people and the stories that you are surrounding yourself with to give you that self-belief? Because self-belief is not a fair weather friend, right? Some of you may have heard me say this. Confidence can come and go based on what happened that day. It's a fair weather friend. We'll be there sometimes, it won't be there other times, but your self-belief and self-compassion will be there for you always. So I think that's really important. The other thing, just to get more tactical, so that's my sort of philosophy on this. To get more tactical, I would say 2 things. I think one is, when you're meeting with that person who you admire, you want to learn something from, who has achieved a goal that you have on your list, do not ask them for advice, because everyone's going to give you advice based on what worked for them, right? It's our bias. I do it, other people do it. Instead of asking for their advice, I would ask people for the frameworks they use to make decisions. And that's a really important distinction. It's not, hey, if you were in my shoes, would you go down option A or option B? Would you, build out your team to be 5 or 10 people, or would you stay as an individual agent? Would you do this? Would you do that? Like, that's the wrong way, because they're just going to tell you what they did. But what I would say is present to them what you're currently dealing with, or how you're thinking about your growth, and ask, what's the framework you would use to make this decision? What are the things you would evaluate to make this decision? Because then you're getting advice that you can apply, by the way, outside of just that particular context, and that's not colored by their own experience. The 2 other things I'll say on this front is, so I love to journal. I don't really do it very often, as often as I would like. But what I do very often is, when I read a great book, or I listen to a good talk, or I catch a great podcast, I will write down the words of wisdom. Or, by the way, I take a Peloton class and the instructor says something that motivates me. Like, you can pull inspiration from anyone, anywhere, any context. Write it down. If something moved you in the moment, future you will also be moved by it. And you never know when future you is going to need that word of advice, that like bit of inspiration, that framework for making a decision. And do it however you want. Write it in a notebook, put it in a spreadsheet, put it in a note in your iPhone. But what I would say is it's less important, like what do I read or look at, but more like what do I do with the insights that I get from what I read or listen or watch. And for me, I'm very big on documenting it so I can capture it down the road.
I love that. And I don't know if you know this, but my team, we're obsessed with Remarkables. We live by our Remarkables. Everything stays in there. It's like a tablet. It's 1,000 notebooks in one, but one of my notebooks in there is sound bites. And I write down the strongest steel is harder and self-belief is in there. Every soundbite I hear is in there. I even offered to Leonard recently that I would share all the real estate ones that he could put in his contemplations, because I go back to them all the time with my coaching, with whatever it is. But you read something great in a book, you'll never remember it tomorrow. So we have the team calls them Francieisms, but I love that. So thank you. And now I'm going to pass you off to Sheryl Miller. She's one of my co-hosts of Women of Compass Clubhouse every Thursday, and she is one of the regional leaders from Philadelphia, and she has a question for you. So Sheryl, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Francie. Okay. I'm at Washington. Hi, Neda. How are you? So I'm joining you from Ardmore in mainline Philadelphia. Wait a second. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. So I thank you so much for joining us today. I love everything that you just said, and it's a testament to what I've heard you say before. If you can measure it, you can manage it. And everything that you just said is, if you can measure it, you can manage it. And I have a question for you. So we had COVID, we had all of the shutdowns, we learned great time efficiencies. I think it was a silver lining of COVID that we had that. We leaned into Zoom, to Google Meet, to Blue Jeans, but we're opening back up again. So I'm actually in the Ardmore office today. It's the first time I've been here in a really long time. It truly made my heart sing to see so many people. So it's a two-part question. What do you see as essential in-person meetings versus non-essential in-person meetings? And where would you see the most value in people sitting down together face-to-face across a table?
Such a good question. I think, there's this great Marcus Aurelius quote, which is that the secret to all victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious. And so the way I translate that, so lies in the organization of the non-obvious. There are tactical things every day that are really obvious. And they're probably like the things that are staring you right in the face. They're the things that are easy to check off the to-do list. And some of those end up being an interaction between you and a team member or one of your clients or your manager that you can execute on in a Zoom meeting together. But what I would say is think about the things that are the non-obvious. Sometimes those are the things that are the longer lead time. So something that's like, how am I planning for Q1 of next year? Because here's my thesis on how the market in my area is going to look differently. Here's what I believe, I rely very heavily on foreign buyers, and based on what's happening in Ukraine, here's what I think is going to happen to foreign buyers. So I need to organize for something in 4 quarters from now. Whatever the non-obvious is, like those are the things that I think require you to be in person to work through, because it's just really hard for me, at least, to do those remotely. And I think what that means is like getting in front of a whiteboard, right? And being able to like literally write things out together. It's, when you're in person, you're just a lot more, what I call like technologically polite. You're not going to be multitasking on your iPhone. You're not going to have your inbox in the background of the Zoom. You're not going to be distracted by like your dog or your partner or somebody else working from home with you. And you're just going to be really focused. So the things that require you to be non-obvious, think longer term, and to be completely devoted and undistracted, those are the moments that I personally lean into being in person. The one other answer that I will give though is, for me, being in person is very energy restorative. And if you are also one of those people, then you gotta have a finger on the pulse of where your energy, like when and where your energy is getting down to like, like close to empty. And then whatever those meetings are, even if they're the tactical, go do those in person, because you can't get depleted all the way down. Like if you're restored by being in person with your agent experience manager, with your sales manager, with your team, other team members, then go do those silly things in person, even if it means that you're literally just co-working in an office, you're not doing anything together. But I think that like energy part, like how does the human component of your work drive you? And go lean into like, go actually get dressed. I got to tell myself this all the time when I go into the office, because that's actually going to enable you to bring your best self in.
We love that. Oh, that's Sheryl. Okay, got it. No feedback. And I am an energy person, as everybody who knows me knows, and I derive energy from other people. And I couldn't be happier now to present you the most energetic, newly promoted agent experience manager, Dana Gold, in our region, Westchester. She is just an inspiration to us all, because everything in Dana's world is delish. There's never a problem. And I have a lot of problems, but I'm passing it over to Dana. Hold on one sec.
Neda, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We know that you get a lot of requests, and we really appreciate putting us in our schedule. I loved your comments in an AEM meeting about figuring out what you want to do by seeing where you are spending your time, your talent, and your treasure. I think about that a lot. I know you mentioned the Peloton. I have a family. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. I have a husband. I have 2 dogs. Before I was walking, I was hiking my dogs 5 days a week. I was playing tennis 5 days a week. And now I can't even imagine how I'm working that in. How are you fitting in stuff with your 10-minute chunks? How are you doing this? How are you taking care of you?
Wow, you have a lot on your plate, Dana. That's remarkable. And thank you for being so good to our teams, really. I think we have such a gift, and we are so lucky to be like in this place, in this time that we are. And so I think I see myself, but I would say this for all of us at Compass, like we are responsible for doing extraordinary things. Right. And how can you do those extraordinary things with what you've been given? You have to invest a little bit in yourself. Right. And so I think part of it is like, give yourself the flexibility and the freedom to go do, like to go invest in yourself, even if it's small, so that you can go do those extraordinary things that you're responsible for. I remember it so distinctly when I graduated from college, I think this is like a very basic thing, but I remember the dean of my college saying, you have certain privileges, rights, and responsibilities with this education you've been given. And I take that concept of responsibility very seriously. So that's sort of like the mindset piece. How do I actually make the time? Look, I think the burden in your example of like, how do you invest in yourself, sort of like your physical health? I think the burden of a 60-minute workout is psychotic for anybody who's got kids or is running their own small business or has a pet at home or has a family member they're caring for. It's impossible. It's the wrong bar to set. And so what I really push myself and others to do is just think about what's like the smallest nugget that you can give to yourself. All of us, I don't care who we are, we've got 15 minutes for ourselves. And I think it's just like lower the bar, reduce the burden, think about like, if I can wake up at 6:45 instead of 7 every day, and all I do is roll out of bed and on the floor, like you do 15 minutes of push-ups and crunches, whatever, right? Whatever it is that you need, 15 minutes of movement outside, 15 minutes of meditation, of reading a book, of listening to a podcast, whatever it is that's like your medicine. For me, movement is medicine. You gotta like lower the bar, make it really small, and go commit to doing that. Put in your calendar in a different color, but you gotta do that. The other thing that I'm not great at, but that I think works for a lot of people, is having an accountability partner on something like that. So, 6 a.m.ers is an outstanding example of an accountability partner, but who's that person that at 6:45 instead of 7 a.m. that you're going to text, like, woke up 15 minutes early, I'm doing it, and do it 5 days a week with that person. That's right. You two have found each other. The other thing, one thing that I did before I had Theo, but I don't do right now, admittedly, is I had like 5 goals that I'd set out. I think this was like January 2020. There were 5 things I wanted to do like 5 days a week. And literally in a piece of paper, I'm going to show you what I did. In a notebook, I literally had those 5 things written out. And what I would do is every day when I would accomplish one of those things, so I'd have, I don't know if you can see it, I'd have the 5 things written out. I would circle in, I would literally color in for the, let's say it was only 3 days a week, I would color in how many times I did each of those 5 things. And then on Sunday, I would go look and be like, how many of the colors or how many of the circles are colored in? It's so silly and basic. And by the way, you can do this in a spreadsheet and a note, you can do it however you want, but like that alone helped me achieve those 5 very basic things. I think it was like a gratitude journal. It was like drinking 64 ounces of water. It was calling my parents every day, whatever those things are. Like little things like that really do move the needle, Dana, and I think they're really important.
And I think the feeling of checking the box, it's like that
Checking the box.
dopamine
Checking the
hit,
box.
like you look at it and you say, oh my God, I did it. I'm proud. And the next week you keep the bar low and you try and achieve a little more. Tiny baby steps.
Yes.
Okay, I'm passing us out to, well, really a wonderful Stamford, Connecticut agent who's in the newly opened Stamford office, but she's at the Greenwich Watch Party. She's also my co-host of Women of Compass Clubhouse. Stacey Zampa, can you unmute?
Hi guys, can you hear us? Yes, represent from Greenwich. I have all these wonderful women and gentlemen with us. So hi Neda, it's so nice to see you. Thank you, Francie. This is so exciting. I think a lot of it you've answered. So I don't want to be repetitive, but it's like, don't believe everything you think. Us as agents, we tend to stay a lot in our heads and a lot of negative talk in our heads, right? So how do you maintain a healthy, selfish mentality?
I think whenever you feel the sentiment of, I feel that I should be happier than I am right now, one of the things I think is really important is to like pause and say, these feelings are not me. These are just moving through me. Right? So if you ever feel like I'm not feeling as positive as I want to be, or as energized, or as happy, or as whatever motivated as I want to be, just know that whatever that negative feeling is, like that is not you. It is something that is moving through you, and it can go out the same door that it came in. It is not a permanent fixture. And I think it all just boils down to like, are you actually listening? Are you having this like meta moment where you're like Neda hovering above Neda or Stacey hovering above Stacey, and just like take note of it, just take stock of it. I think that is like really what helps me, because we all have those feelings. But by the way, they are just moving through us. And so how can you create the context so that you can become aware of that feeling when it's moving through you, I think is really, really important. And I think it also goes back to what I said at the top, which is like being aware of the monologue and being aware of who you are surrounding yourself with. So I saw this stat last night in one of these email newsletters that I get, that I'm sure you all get. And the subject line, I'm gonna actually pull it up on my phone. The subject line was, "You're not nuts." And I was like, what does this mean? And basically like the TLDR is that we're surrounded by Twitter or these news headlines and all these things. There's like negativity all around us. There's a lot of complicated, really hard, unimaginable things that are happening right now around a lot of us. But keeping in mind that like, that broader context we're getting exposed to is such a skewed view of what's happening in the world. So 75% of people in the US never tweet, right? And so what you're hearing, 75% of people, but what you are hearing is like this, like the 25% that are really loud and really extreme. And that's sort of like the context of what's happening in the world. But in your own mind, think about like the things that are getting your attention that you tell about yourself are going to be the most extremes, right? And so how do you actually normalize for reality, not the most extremes? The one thing I often say to our employee team is, I don't remember who gave me this advice, but I remember someone saying that you are never as good as what the best headlines say about you as a company, but you're also never as bad as what the worst headlines say about you as a company, right? And I think it's just that mindset of making sure that you're not ever living on either extreme, because it's not actually reality. And how can you, Robert says this all the time, how do you like ground yourself in reality, learn from reality?
Love that. Love that. And I wanted to add to that, events plus perception equals outcome. So Sunday night, I got a call. If I lowered my commission to 4%, they would give me the listing. I turned it down. Absolutely not. Same exact thing happened to a friend of mine in Queens, New York, same day. And she called me and was in the worst mood because she wouldn't reduce. She didn't get the listing. And I said, oh my God, I'm thrilled. That was a win. My team does not work. We know our worth and we're worth it. And you're beating yourself up. I said, for the GCI that was going to come into Compass at that price, it wasn't worth your time. And she turned around the perception and said, oh my God, yeah, you're right. It's a win. So it's on us. Like, don't believe what you think. Go in a dark room, think about it for a second, let it wash over you and say, oh, wait, I just did something very well instead of I lost a listing. So thank you for that. We love that. And we're moving you to Sandra Hedenberg, our sales. We have 3 questions left just to manage your time. Sandra Hedenberg, a phenomenal sales manager in Southern Jersey and also a regional leader of Women of Compass and just a tremendous ambassador for Women of Compass, has been running consistent events through COVID. So take it away, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Francie, and thank you for having me. Hi, Neda. So thrilled to be here with you today. So when I was asked to come up with a question, of course, I was like, I'm going to Google her and see what comes up. So there were so many cool things that came up about all of your accomplishments, but there was one that I found, which was actually an article from 2013, which was the portrait project from Berkshire Hathaway, or excuse me, from Berkshire Hathaway, it's a total slip, from Harvard Business School, where you spoke of your grandparents' relation and how that was so impactful on the way that you viewed all relationships. It caused you to always prioritize your most important relationships over your personal life. My question for you today is, in our industry, we find ourselves, whether you're a sales manager, an agent, an OEM, an AEM, someone in leadership, we find ourselves constantly being pulled around the clock to just take that one more phone call before we go to bed at night, or we miss personal events quite frequently because of our positions in the real estate industry. Can you share with us your absolute non-negotiables in life, or the best practices that you have as far as prioritizing your relationships over your career on a daily, consistent basis?
That's such a great question. And that's really thoughtful. I love the Google stalking. I appreciate that. So, there's this book by Clayton Christensen, and I'm going to forget the name of it, Francie, but I'll send it to you all after. But Clayton Christensen was a professor at Harvard Business School when I was there. And he has this quote where he says, it's easier to do something 100% of the time than 99% of the time, because 99 turns to 97, turns to 90, turns to 85, turns to you're not doing it. And I think that mantra, and I'm not great at this. My husband is really good at this. I'm not great at it, but I always keep that in my mind, which is like the first time. And the example that he gives, by the way, is, he was running an incredible company and there was a really urgent client meeting. Now, granted, he worked in consulting. Context is very different from real estate, but context was, and he came from a very religious upbringing, and the context was some important client needed to meet with him on like Sunday, and Sunday was his day where he would go to church with his family and then spend all afternoon with his family. It was like the only day of the week that he didn't work. And he was like, in that moment, I could have said, one time, in 40 years, I'm going to do it. I'm never going to do it again. He said no, because he knew that if he did it that one time, then like the team around him would know that he could do it again. They could bug him again. Then he would be setting a different example for his family. And so he stuck with like 100% of, yes, How Will You Measure Your Life, Joanne? I think that's the right book. He knew that if he stuck to it 100% of the time. And so I think that I'm not great at this, but I think that that's the mindset that I would use for when you choose what your non-negotiables are. And maybe your non-negotiable is really easy at chapter 1, at step 1. Maybe it's once every 2 months, you carve out Friday nights and you turn off your phone and you're going to go do whatever it is that gives you joy. But I guess the framework I would use is choose that one thing to start with and have the mindset of, I'm going to do this 100% of the time, not 99% of the time. And I think that is how you will start to unlock the happiness that those non-negotiables can give to you. So that doesn't directly answer your question, Sandy, but I think like that's the framework I would use to tackle it. My personal non-negotiables change over time. So right now, my one non-negotiable is that I get like 30 minutes of movement, like exercise, about 6 days a week. And then I eat dinner with my husband on Thursday nights out of the house without the baby. And those are my only two non-negotiables right now. But I will tell you, since introducing those two things, I have so much more oxygen in my life.
Love that. Love that. So we want to be mindful of your time. It's 12:45. Do you have time for
No,
two
you
more
have
questions?
me. You have me.
Oh, we're so lucky. Great. So we're passing it over to Ginger Shukrun, our new Northern New Jersey sales manager. Ginger, are you out there? Huh.
Go ahead. Hi, how are you? Thanks, Francie. Thanks, Jason. Hi, Neda. Hello from Jersey City.
Hello, Jersey City.
So we did have a question for you. A lot of my agents will ask how to find the time with family and vacations, right? Like, how do you find the time to book it? How do you quiet your mind when you're in it? And what's the best practice?
Good question.
So technically, I would say that I feel like I'm on vacation right now. So my family and I have come down to Florida for 3 weeks. Now I'm working 5 days a week. But first of all, being here, you all, my tri-state family, I love you. But this is like March in Florida is fabulous. I think it's figuring out, like, don't make the trade-offs too hard for yourself. So if I were to say, hey, in March, which is a really busy time at Compass, that I need an entire week or long weekend where I'm not going to work, that'll be really, really hard. But for me to say, hey, what's the compromise that'll give me the restoration that I need? And this was it. It's just go work from a different place in a different context, because that's going to give you the energy that you need. So I think what I would say on this front is it's been a busy 24 months for all of us. And this year may not relent. And so what are those places where you can do the vacation or the restoration that you need in a way that restores you, but allows you to deliver on what you need? The one thing I'll say that I heard recently in a podcast that I thought was really beautiful, that gave me the courage to just say, screw it, we're going down to Florida for 3 weeks, we'll figure it out. Somebody said, and I don't remember where I heard this, but this really, actually, I think it may have been Dante Carroll in Greater Philadelphia. I don't know if he's on the line. Actually, Dante, I definitely heard this from you, and I wrote it down after we met. I don't know if you're on the line, but Joanne, you should tell him that I said this. He said this beautiful thing, which is that, life is like the dash between your birth year and your death year, which is like a very stark thing to say, right? But when he said it, it was so illuminating for me, because it's like, what are you going to fill that dash with? And while that may be dark, I actually found it really empowering. And so for me, I was like, and I think I was on the heels of this meeting with Dante, where I decided to come down here with my family. And so I think just reminding yourself of that, is really important. And I think whether you have more yesterdays than tomorrows or more tomorrows than yesterdays, you are the only person who's going to go do something for you in that dash period. And I think that's really powerful. So thank you, Dante.
That is very powerful. Passing you over to Nicole Rotolo, our marketing advisor, who's been instrumental in putting all of this together, for our final question.
Okay, thank you, Neda. Just wanted to let you know I'm getting text messages, Slack messages. We're getting group chats saying what amazing nuggets. We're writing down notes, wishing we had our electronics in front of us instead, so we don't have to transcribe later. But thank you so much. So the question we had was, we heard you come from a real estate background. Is there something like your mom was in real estate? So what would be the biggest takeaway you've learned from her on International Women's Day?
Yeah, okay. I want to say two things really quick. All of our dream, this is definitely something that I learned from my mom, and I think it's really relevant for the way anyone who's a professional in real estate operates. Your dreams lie in the work of others, right? For a lot of us, whether it's Francie and the support that she's getting from Jason and Dana, or the team members under you, or, as an OA, the OA team that you partner with. But like, your dreams lie in the work of others, and the bigger your dreams, the more people you need to help you. And what I think is really important there is just keep in mind how you are, like, we all have that responsibility to lift and elevate those around us so that we can achieve these great dreams that we all have for ourselves, for our business, for our team, for our family, for our company. I think that's really important. And everyone on this call, like, you are an inspiration to someone in your life, whether or not you know it. And you play a role in their dreams and their ability to achieve their potential, and vice versa. And so I think that she just had such an appreciation for how her dreams lied in the work of others and around her. I've told this story before, but when she first got to the US, she was 17 and working behind the cash register at a Dunkin' Donuts, right? But she did not take for granted how much her future dreams relied on her colleagues at Dunkin' Donuts, right? To help her get to the next thing that eventually got her to real estate. In whatever context you're in, I would just keep that in mind. I think that's really important. And the last thing I'll say, just because it's International Women's Day, is, early in my career, I had an opportunity to work in sub-Saharan Africa. I worked in a whole bunch of different countries. The first country I worked in was Rwanda, and I was living in the capital there. And I was building a business training program for female entrepreneurs. Female entrepreneurs in Rwanda are a little bit different than female entrepreneurs at Compass. They're weaving baskets, they're growing cassava that they sell, they're making jewelry. They're female entrepreneurs. And the context, the really quick context, right, in Rwanda is that in 1994, they had a genocide where 10% of the population was decimated over the course of 90 days. And so women became the primary, not only breadwinners of the household, but the sources of sustenance and opportunity in communities. And so on this International Women's Day, I definitely don't take for granted how much in countries that have less than what we have, how much women are the lifeblood for education and healthcare and economic opportunity for their communities. So the last thing we have so much inspiration to give them. We have so much inspiration to pull from them. So I'd say, think about if you have the means or the time of a women's organization that you could maybe invest something in, because that's what pays dividends to the opportunity for the next generation. I don't want that to be preachy, but I still pull so much inspiration from those women that I worked with in Kigali. So aside from my mom, I pull a lot of inspiration from female entrepreneurs. There's nothing like it.
Agree. Amen. On International Women's Day, that's the most wonderful way to end it. And I've been to Kigali and I've been to Rwanda, and I've watched them walk down with the baskets and of the water. They go down and they get the water, they walk back up mile hills, and it's all women doing it all. So thank you so much. Jason just told us, I think there's about 500 people watching, again, from Boston to Philly. We see some Florida, all over the country. You can fill a room. I say to Leonard, you can fill a room. Neda, you can fill a room. So thank you. And I'm so glad so many people got to meet you for the first time, and others got to see you like we always get to. And we're so inspired by you. And I'm sure you have another 20-minute meeting to run to.
This is great. Thank you. You all refilled my batteries. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.